Welcome back. We are now seeing Bitcoin and some other cryptos reaching or passing their all-time record highs in the second half of 2025. And we really need to understand what is going on in the general ecosystem, because now we're hearing that Ethereum Foundation is selling their ETH, and that typically, at least historically, has indicated top of the market. Now, it doesn't mean top forever. It just means local top in the cycle that we're in. And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down why BlackRock themselves, the major investor in a lot of different stocks and now cryptocurrencies, could be causing a crypto bull trap, at least within Bitcoin, buying up all the altcoins and moving the narrative and the shift away from Bitcoin and into the alt season. This is potentially what is underway right now. But in today's video, we're going to be exploring the macro markets, understand where we are in the cycle, understand what the big players are doing, because it doesn't matter what I think, it doesn't matter what you think, or what I'm doing in my portfolio. We are nothing compared to BlackRock's billions or trillions of dollars of inflow and the other similar companies to BlackRock. And we're also going to be discussing the merging of the narratives between the artificial intelligence technology and crypto. And so we're going to be starting today's video out understanding where we are in the market, understand what AI implications we have, understand what's going on in the general economy, and more importantly, how this all affects crypto. This is the Cryptoviser podcast. We talk about everything crypto, blockchain, and investing every single day of the year. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, give the video a free thumbs up, and let's get right into today's topics. Now, I saw this post on X by this user who, I think some type of boxer or something. Anyway, he said, an entire generation is currently studying for jobs that will not exist. And this hit hard, right? Because while we're looking at crypto and looking to make money in crypto, some people are doing this full time. Some people are building in the blockchain or financial tech space. We have to remember that there's a lot of people that are not even, they haven't even made any crypto purchases, let alone understand what this technology and this financial space is about. And what we have been seeing in 2025 is massive job losses, right? At many of the big technology firms. This is really the key, because the tech firms are moving into artificial intelligence. Like, whether we want to believe it, whether you do believe it or not, they are. And so we're seeing more efficiencies in the high level kind of business organization and really just kind of eliminating some of these middle jobs. And I mean, guys, it starts here with robots that bring food to the table, or clean up in stores, or take your orders. And we're seeing more and more and more of this. But at the end of the day, guys, there are people in college right now. There are people going into debt right now to get degrees in jobs that are no longer going to there may be jobs, right? But they're going to be very, very low paid jobs, because if you think about it, right, when I would say over the last 30 years, people looked at like fast food workers as, oh, that's like entry level. That's not a career, even though it is for a lot of people. And now some people who work in fast food make way more money than people who spend years and years getting degrees for jobs. And so we have to kind of think about that as well. But at the end of the day, it starts here and it's going to trickle into other jobs, right? If you're going to school for accounting, those jobs are gone, right? Tax prep, those jobs are basically gone, because most of it is automated. And what's not automated, it's a very oversaturated business. And this is happening more and more. We're seeing Waymos getting pushed out, robo-taxis getting pushed out. This could potentially, over the course of time, eliminate entire jobs. And so this is why crypto is so important for so many, because the job market is getting more difficult. The pay is getting more difficult. Retirement is getting more difficult. And this is a way to protect that, number one, your investment from you actually going to work and making money. So then you can grow your money instead of just spend it. But a lot of people, what they do is they just go spend their money. And this is what we're talking about in crypto. Really, it's kind of exiting the system, right? It's exiting the old system. It's exiting the fiat system, choosing no longer to go into this hyperinflationary currency and going into these controlled currencies where we know where the supply is, we know where the activity is going. And we're going to be talking about a lot of that in today's video. But it's not just people speculating that AI is replacing jobs. Literally, NVIDIA's CEO is telling you on TV. He says that AI won't replace jobs, but people who use AI will replace those who don't. So effectively, AI is going to replace jobs. Let's listen to exactly what he says in this quick clip.
I think that it is true that jobs will be changed. But the most important thing is it's not likely you'll lose a job to AI. You're going to lose a job to somebody who uses AI. And so I would recommend everybody do what we do, which is use artificial intelligence to help us with our work and do our jobs better.
And the thing is, the US, generally speaking, is not ready for this, right? Our educational system teaches don't use AI, learn how to do the job. And meanwhile, that's not what the CEO of these major companies are saying and what is going to be rolled out. And so there's going to be a lot of people who've gone to school for jobs and they're going to get out of school, and it's already happening, and there's no jobs for them. Or the job that they're looking for is only paying $30,000 and they thought they were going to be making $110,000. And so it is very important that you understand this technology of crypto, this technology of AI, and how you need to implement it into your life, whether it's your job, whether it's your finances, whether it's your investments, utilizing this technology to assist and accelerate what you're doing. And that brings us into crypto, because part of crypto is taking losses, right? As I have said for literally months on this channel, I believe Bitcoin is topping out. And it's not just what I think, it's based on the actual data, based on the halving tracker, which shows that we are very, very close to the previous all-time record highs in terms of days since the halving. But there's something that I don't think that most of you guys on my channel get it, right? But there's a lot of new people coming into the channel, a lot of new people coming into the crypto space that don't understand taking a loss. Not just taking a loss, but right, let's say you bought Bitcoin at some level below 100,000 and then you sold it at 100,000. Now that we're at 117,000, there's a lot of people that they would get their emotions involved and say, damn, I sold at 100. I should have held till 117,000. Instead of moving on to the next trade, they're focusing on their past trades. They're focusing on their losses. They're focusing on maybe not maximizing the gains or selling exactly at the top. But the idea here is that you don't have to time the market. All you need to do is time the profits. If you're in the green, it's never a bad time to sell your crypto. And this is what we talk about on the regular on this channel. But there's a lot of tourists to this channel that come and say, but Cryptoviser, you were saying at $110,000 that Bitcoin topped out and now we're at $117,000. And it's like, that's like a 4 or 5% gain. Not really worried about it. If you're worried about a 5% gain just to get at the tippy top, right? And again, we can go to $400,000 or $500,000 in the next few weeks. I'm not going to say, there's going to be people in the comments that say, Cryptoviser, you were wrong. You missed out. You're an idiot. I'm like, did you take profits yet? Now that we're at a $400,000? Likely not, because the higher we go in the market, the more greedy people get. And the more greedy people get, the more people that are going to be wrecked as the market comes down, right? And so we have to understand what taking a loss means, because it's not necessarily a bad thing if you learn from it. And that's what we've been doing on this channel since 2018, guys. I lost a lot of money in 2018 when the market came down, but I knew nothing about the crypto markets. I was investing in something I didn't really understand. And so part of this channel is bringing everybody on the journey of learning about finances, learning about trading, learning about investing, and also learning about the not so pretty side of investing, because most of these other YouTubers and influencers out here in the crypto space, they will tell you about every gain they had, but never a loss. I even know a very wealthy investor, and this person always tells me, oh yeah, my portfolio's up, everything's up, everything. I'm like, how is your portfolio up all the time in a bear market, in a bull market? And I'm talking about general portfolio. Well, the person bought, 30 years ago at very, 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 very low prices. And so obviously you're still up even in the down market, right? But generally speaking, the day by day flows are not always green. And a lot of these influencers will show you, oh, I'm making money. We're all making money. And they're not going to tell you that they're losing or that they've sold or whatever the situation is. So in this clip, I don't even know where it's from, but it's in response to this tweet that says, trading is ultimately about learning to lose. There's no 100% win rate trader that doesn't inevitably sustain a fatal loss. Making your losses as comfortable as possible is underrated. And so let's listen to this clip that this user Delta XBT posted from this conversation at some kind of conference about taking losses and understanding how these markets work. And so if you're thinking, oh, well, Cryptoviser said that we were at the top at 110,000 and now we're at 117 or even 200,000. And you're thinking, damn, it was good that I didn't listen to him, or damn, I'm glad that I didn't sell my coin, or damn, the rest of his thesis is wrong. You're missing the point, right? It's never, ever, ever a bad a bad deal to take profits out of the market. I'd rather be in profit 1% than be in a loss 2%. So let's listen in. And by the way, don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up. And then we're going to actually, after this video, we're going to go into the data that's showing us what's happening with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and how this is going to impact and affect the rest of the market, including altcoins. Let's listen in.
Let's go back to the point you made where you spoke about how it's important to lose. It sounds like you've got a few things you want to say about that. So let's hear it.
Well, it's just my observation the last couple of years of my life that a society in general doesn't really teach people how to lose. They teach you how to win. Winning's easy. Everybody knows how to win. You know, they see LeBron James win a basketball game making the last shot. He knows how to win. He's a winner. Winning's easy. But is there anything in society that teaches you how to lose? Is there a course at university you take that says, hey, come take this course, we're going to teach you how to lose? Engineering. There is one thing that will teach you how to lose, and that's organized sport. Because in organized sport, you will lose. Okay? That's the only thing I can think of that teaches you how to lose. Other than that, you have to figure it out for yourself. You really do. And losing and how you deal with losing is extremely important in trading. Because winning, I'm telling you, is easy. That's easy. It takes care of itself.
Yep.
The key to trading is learning and figuring out how to take a loss and how you deal with that up here. Do you hang on to it and let it bother you, or do you release it?
And this is so critical, guys. It's not just in crypto. Job interviews, jobs that are moving to AI, the inability, like if you're working at a job that is not allowing you to utilize artificial intelligence in some way, or the company's not providing you with things to utilize AI to make your job more efficient, like you need to start looking, right? You may view it as a loss, right? But at the end of the day, it's happening, it's underway. And if you're not part of it, you're going to be left behind. Same thing in crypto. If you think that there's going to be an announcement when the top is hit and you are going to time it perfectly, and you can't even understand that we're only up 7% since I called the top of the market, or 4%, that's really nothing in terms of crypto. I mean, crypto, I would expect to see 200, 300, 400% gains in a very short period of time. And we have not seen that in pretty much most cryptos this cycle. Most of the volatility and most of the money movement was in, and is still in, these Bitcoin and crypto related stocks that we're going to be talking about in just a minute. But let's continue listening to get the final piece of his point here about learning how to lose, and learning that a loss doesn't necessarily mean a loss. I mean, right before FTX collapsed, 2 weeks before, I made a video telling my viewers, you may want to start taking a look at your portfolio and getting out of losing positions and re-put the money into positions that are going to perform better. Cryptoviser, how could you tell us at the bottom of the market that we should be restructuring our portfolio? Well, 2 weeks later, what happened? FTX went down, crypto cratered. We were buying on this channel while everybody else, every other influencer, was so shocked that FTX went down, and they were anticipating Binance going down, Grayscale going down, all these other cryptos, major losses. None of that happened because that was the bottom of the market. And so we were able to win in that trade. A lot of people were not able to because they couldn't take a loss, even if the loss then meant a gain. Let's listen to the final points.
And let it go. All I can say is that you need to learn from when you're trading. You have to learn, and you can learn from being correct and say I did that correct, and you learn from that. And you can also learn from when you lose. And when you lose, you have to experience the loss, feel it, learn from it, and spit it out and let it go, and focus on the next trade. If you hang on to a loss too long, it will pollute you. It will not allow you to make the next trade, and you have to focus always on the next trade. The next trade is the most important trade in the world.
Yep.
Not the last trade, or
Yep.
the trade before that, or the trade before that. Just let the trades happen and focus on the now of trading.
And by the way, 100% correct right here. Because at the end of the day, you only need one trade amongst hundreds to win. And we've done the very simple math previously, where if you take $10,000 and you invest 1,000 in 10 different companies or stocks or cryptos, whatever, let's say 9 go to 0. That means you have $1,000 of investment left. But that one investment that you made now is doing a 20 or a 30x. Now, it's not going to happen with every single trade, right? But even if it does a 20x, that means that you're now at $20,000. So with one trade, you doubled your entire portfolio of $10,000 while you lost in 9 of 10 trades. 90% of the time you lost. But 10% of the time in the wins can bring you over and recoup all of the losses. But unfortunately, a lot of people will look and they'll say, yeah, but I lost $9,000. And it's like, yeah, but you just gained 20,000. You gained double your investment. You gained $10,000. They're like, yeah, but I could have had 29,000. And then you keep focusing on those losses, you miss the bigger picture. And that is what we are talking about, where we are in the cycle, however much higher we can go. I'm not trying to time the market to the day. We do that a lot on this channel with a lot of cryptos, and we've been right a lot of the time. But this is too risky, especially with what is going on in the crypto markets. We are now seeing Ethereum has reclaimed $3,000 as BlackRock's spot Ethereum ETF notches $300 million in record daily inflows. And where is that coming from? Well, we're seeing a lot of it is actually coming from BlackRock. BlackRock is buying more Ethereum now than Bitcoin. BlackRock just bought $158 million of Ethereum while only buying $125 million of Bitcoin. Their Ethereum buys have now flipped their Bitcoin buys. And this is what I've been talking about for weeks. Pretty much all of June and most of July in 2025, I've been talking about this rotation out of Bitcoin into Ethereum because Wall Street is very interested in what Ethereum is doing. And another indicator of where we are in the cycle is Ethereum Foundation is selling. Every time that we've talked about Ethereum Foundation selling in the past, for the most part, it's been the top of the market or very, very close to the top of the market. This was in 2020. Vitalik Buterin said the Ethereum Foundation sold 70,000 Ethereum at all-time record highs. Again, that was in 2020. Vitalik said that furthermore, he acknowledged that when his team managed to sell a notable amount of coins, he said, I did get the Ethereum Foundation to sell 70,000 Ethereum, like basically at the top. And that's doubled our runway for now. It was one good decision that had a lot of impact. To put things in perspective, basically the top would mean somewhere around $1,400, again, 2020, as Ethereum's all-time high. And the sale of 70,000 coins would be $98 million. Further, back in the end of 2017, the bull market was in 2017, Buterin reportedly transferred 30,000 Ethereum to the popular crypto exchange Bitstamp. And so Vitalik is a top caller. He's very accurate with his top calls. I remember back in 2021, right around the time that Elon Musk was going to go on Saturday Night Live and everybody was anticipating Dogecoin going to $1, Vitalik was on an interview around that same time. And he said, the bubble has already popped. And I remember reporting this on this channel and saying, guys, this is odd that he's saying the bubble popped somewhere around the middle of 2021. even though we topped out in Bitcoin and many cryptos in the end of 2021, the macro top, right, was already popped at the beginning of 2021, right? The end of the year was just the volatility exiting the bull market and rotating into a bear market. And that you typically see high volatility during this rotation phase. You can see that on the Bitcoin halving tracker. Massive volatility to the upside, massive volatility to the downside. And even in the last cycle, you can see that the all-time record high at the end of the year, I'm showing you guys right here on the halving tracker, on a scaled up, version of this, you can see that the all-time record high in 2021 was very close to what it was earlier in 2021 when Vitalik said that was the top of the market. So now that we're seeing Ethereum, a lot of institutions are interested in Ethereum, they're buying Ethereum, but now we have a better understanding of where they're buying it from. And by the way, this is a huge issue with Bitcoin and the MicroStrategy play, because MicroStrategy appears to be buying most of their Bitcoin off exchanges, right, off chain. So it's not like they're putting an order on the order book and saying we want to buy $500 million in Bitcoin. They are literally, it seems like they're going directly to the Bitcoin mining companies and saying we want to buy your Bitcoin, don't sell it on the open market. And it's just a transfer from one entity to another. And this is what the Ethereum Foundation just did. ETH Foundation sells 10,000 Ethereum to SharpLink in the first such OTC deal. And obviously we know SharpLink is the Joe Lubin Ethereum treasury company. And where do you think they're buying all this Ethereum from? I mean, some of it they bought from Consensus. And this is effectively, it's like IPOing a private company, but keeping it private, right? Because Consensus is effectively selling their Ethereum to SharpLink, Ethereum Foundation as well, while they still maintain a private status and don't have to get into the whole publicly traded company and board of directors and shareholders and all of that. And so it's just a transfer from one company to another company. It seems like most of these treasury deals, most of the treasury companies are not buying Bitcoin on the open market. And this is why we're seeing some movement in the price, but we're not seeing, if they were purchasing 10,000 Ethereum or 10,000 Bitcoin on the regular market, the prices would be much higher because the markets are very thinly traded. And so when I saw all of this, it kind of get me wondering, like, am I missing something? Is the general crypto ecosystem missing something? And I think the answer is yes. I think the general crypto ecosystem still believes this is the last cycle or the cycle before that. And there's no structure. And that Wall Street, guys, we literally went from Bitcoin maximalists saying that Bitcoin is the premier trade. Granted, MicroStrategy is great because they're going to help pump the price, but the trade is Bitcoin, not MicroStrategy. And now we literally have those same Bitcoin maximalists shilling their company that's buying Bitcoin at a premium. It's totally the antithesis of what the Bitcoin network was created for, and trying to keep Wall Street hands off of it. And now the same Bitcoin maxis that were promoting that are promoting Wall Street getting involved. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing or a good thing. I just think it is what it is. Again, we trade the market in front of us, not the market that we want. And so the market that we want is them to be making these purchases on the open market, not through private transactions. But that's apparently what they're doing. But this is still bullish for these cryptocurrencies because now you have the biggest firms in the world buying up Ethereum. And so we have to keep in mind like how this is going to play. Like, because in my view, the purchase of Bitcoin by these companies through private sales, it's just transferring the wealth. Like, it's not really having a material impact on the markets. And I don't know that it will. People are going to say, no, Cryptoviser, you're wrong. We're going at $500,000. It's like, we already have about 20 companies purchasing Bitcoin on a regular basis, utilizing debt. If you don't see the risk there, I don't know what to tell you. Especially they're buying it with debt at all-time record highs. And the people's sentiment is so bullish. I mean, look at this. We were literally in the like heading to the fear side of the fear greed index literally 1 week before I'm recording this video. And now we're back in the greed and going closer to greed. And Bitcoin barely moved. I mean, people are like, oh, but Cryptoviser, we're at all-time record highs. It's like the 7 days it went up 10%, 9%. This is not a big number for Bitcoin. But the maxis are like, oh my God, we're at all-time record highs. This is amazing. It's like, no. It's taking billions and billions and billions of dollars to keep the price elevated to this level. And while everyone keeps saying that Bitcoin is going to run out and there's limited supply, clearly that's not the situation. And we also have big whales, right? Just the other day, we saw a whale moving 80,000 Bitcoin from Genesis, right? From the beginning of Bitcoin, from when they were mining over a decade ago. They're not just moving these coins to move the coins, to say, oh, I'm not going to sell these. No, they're moving these coins to let you know there's a lot more supply than you think. And typically, to me, that's an indicator of all they got to do is dump those coins on the market. Because while MicroStrategy and all these Bitcoin treasury companies, they're buying a lot. I mean, you can see that right here on the Bitcoin ETF chart. Pretty much for the last 2 or 3 weeks, every day except for one, there's been inflows of hundreds of millions of dollars into the Bitcoin ETFs. You can see that in this last column right here. Even in one day, July 10th, there was $1.1 billion of inflows going into the Bitcoin ETFs, which is a big number. But where are they getting this Bitcoin from? And by the way, if you start to see even more purchases going into the market, this could also indicate that there's more supply, right? So that whale that had 80,000 unlocked 80,000 Bitcoin from Genesis or from early day Satoshi eras. What happens if they start dumping those on the market, 10,000 Bitcoin at a time or 20,000 Bitcoin at a time? Effectively, MicroStrategy and the other companies, they're going to have to buy those Bitcoin. Like, it's not even a choice. And so is MicroStrategy really in control? Or is it the whales that are still in control? Because you could say MicroStrategy is a whale, but they're never selling their Bitcoin. So they're not technically a whale that can do anything, right? They're just buying up the supply. They're buying up the extra liquidity. But they have to keep doing this at ever increasing rates. And if you think that there's not other Genesis wallets that are going to be unlocked in the future, I don't know what to tell you. There definitely are. And all they got to do, granted, MicroStrategy may be able to suck up all that liquidity. But if they dump 80,000 Bitcoin on the market and you start to see these Bitcoin ETFs or MicroStrategy acquiring at an even more rapid pace, that doesn't look too good, right? Because that means that they're buying all of this coin that's being dumped and not being done through these private sales where one party goes to the other party and says, we'll buy it directly from you. So don't put it on the open market. And I think this is part of the reason that we haven't seen the prices really surging the way that they should based on MicroStrategy and all these other companies buying all this Bitcoin because they're doing it off exchange transactions. And this is not good. And they're doing it with Ethereum as well now. Meanwhile, SharpLink, which we just talked about, buying 10,000 Ethereum from Ethereum Foundation. It's very interesting if you look at some of these companies' SEC filings, because effectively these SEC filings tell you a little bit more about what these companies are doing or intend to do. And so everyone's really bullish on SharpLink, and I'm not bullish on SharpLink. I'm just also not bullish on SharpLink. Like, I'm kind of like in the middle. Because SharpLink is doing very similar things to what we saw with MicroStrategy at the beginning of the year, increasing their shares. And not just increasing their shares, but they're putting a vote out to increase their shares 5x from 100 million shares to 500 million shares. And effectively, why do you think they're doing this? Well, they want to issue these shares. That way they can sell them on the open market, raise more money, buy more Ethereum. And so that flywheel, as we've seen with MicroStrategy, is a net negative because before MicroStrategy was selling shares on the open market, the stock price kept going higher and higher and higher. But now, once they started selling their own shares on the open market, we saw a decrease of the price appreciation in their stock price, and it's been sideways trading, even though they keep acquiring more and more Bitcoin. And so this is something to keep in mind with SharpLink in what they're doing, because they are going to start selling their shares on the open market, especially if there's a premium. But SharpLink is about to flip the Ethereum Foundation for the number of Ether held on their balance sheet. You can see they're very close. Ethereum Foundation is about 242,000 Ethereum, and SharpLink has 215,000 Ethereum. And again, why are they moving their ETH? Why are we seeing private companies moving their Ethereum to public companies? I think it really just has to do with security and disclosures and ability to understand where these coins are. And public companies are more controllable than private companies because you have a board of directors, you have shareholders, you have votes and all of that. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if the Ethereum Foundation sells their coins or SharpLink has more than what Ethereum Foundation has. It's going to be very interesting. But keep in mind, all this Ethereum that they're selling, they're taking the cash for. And so people who say, but Cryptoviser, nobody is taking fiat, which is devaluing, for crypto, which is increasing in value. And clearly that's not the case, guys, because if it was the case, Bitcoin would be much higher priced because there wouldn't be enough Bitcoin to satisfy all of the buys that we're seeing. Same thing is going on with Ethereum. And so when you see all these purchases and the prices are barely moving, this is the reason why. It's exactly the reason why. And so these MicroStrategy bulls, I'm not saying MicroStrategy is not going higher, but these MicroStrategy bulls are not seeing the fact that they're going to keep selling shares in the open market. They're going to keep suppressing the price of the stock. Michael Saylor and all of his executives have clearly told the public, not only by what they say, but what they're doing with their own shares. Because most of them are liquidating or have liquidated all their shares in MicroStrategy. And they're doing it in the bull market because this is when the liquidity is coming in. This is the time to sell. When Wall Street is saying, we're going to buy your Ethereum from you, this is the time to sell. Now, people are going to say, but Cryptoviser, Ethereum hasn't even reached all-time record highs, so why would somebody be selling? Well, you tell me. You're the one who's bullish on Ethereum. Meanwhile, the Ethereum Foundation is selling their coins. You do the math on that one, right? Listen, I'm not bearish. I actually do, when I'm recording this video, I do hold Ethereum. And I don't even know what the percentage is, whether I hold more Bitcoin or Ethereum, but it's probably Ethereum at this point because Ethereum has not reached its all-time record highs. Bitcoin already has. And people are most bullish now at all-time record highs after tens of billions of dollars have been pumped into the market through debt issuance. That's what you're bullish about? I mean, the whole point of Bitcoin is to be anti-debt. And that, granted, they're using debt to buy and acquire Bitcoin, but what happens if there's an issue? What happens if they get margin called? It's very possible because we're not even double what their buy price is, MicroStrategy. And these new companies like Anthony Pompliano's ProCap, they're buying at $110,000. So if we go to $50,000, these companies are done for. It's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. And like I showed you the flows, right? We're starting to see more and more flows into the Ethereum ETFs. As I've explained, we're seeing the rotation. And the Bitcoin play, I think, is kind of over. It's not that it's over, right? MicroStrategy is going to keep buying. All these other Bitcoin companies are going to keep buying. But this is the new baseline, right? And so people are focusing on the next big thing, right? Because remember what we showed you at the beginning of this video. I showed you this clip here about taking a loss and being okay with a loss. And so once we start to see, and we are already seeing the move back into the greed, right? When we get to this green line of extreme greed, that is the sell point, right? So you have until then to sell, and then we'll probably go back into fear at some point. That will be a signal to buy. Then we go back into the green, signal to sell. This is the rotation of the volatility. The volatility is telling us where we are in the cycle. Beginning of the cycle, a lot of volatility. End of the cycle, a lot of volatility. Why? Because it's the beginning of the bull cycle, but it's the end of the bear cycle. So there's a rotation. And at the end of the bull cycle, it's the beginning of the bear cycle. So it's a rotation as well. And so there is going to be volatility. But this is also could lead into a bear trap, or sorry, a bull trap. And a bull trap is effectively when the market is telling us that it has topped out or very close to topping out, but the market participants are saying, no, it's not. It's not topping out. It's not topping out. Meanwhile, let's say we take a little bit of a dip, right? Because the thing is, we went from $110,000 down to $98,000, and people were saying, oh, that was capitulation, market's going up from here, that was the bottom. And there's people even still saying today that $100,000 is the floor. This is the 1-year chart of Bitcoin. There's no floor that has been created, period. In fact, I see a double top here, a double top here. Now we broke out from that quadruple top, and we're higher. But what is the catalyst? What is the baseline for continuance of that? For me, there's still ample Bitcoin in existence, right? People are acting like MicroStrategy and BlackRock own the world of Bitcoin. They don't. They don't. Bitcoin, BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF has $53 billion of Bitcoin, right? So if we do the math on that, $53,451 billion, that's million billion, and we divide that by, let's say, $117,000. So they own basically 500,000 Bitcoin. MicroStrategy owns 600,000 Bitcoin. So to combine, they own about 1 million Bitcoin, right? There's still 19 million Bitcoin left. Now, you could say 5 million of those Bitcoin are lost forever. Okay, maybe. So there's 14 million Bitcoin left. So you're telling me that MicroStrategy and BlackRock are keeping the market elevated when they have a very small percent of a very small percent of the Bitcoin supply. And to buy the rest of it, it's going to cost trillions of dollars, right? If they keep it up. But what we've seen recently is MicroStrategy is taking a little bit of a breather, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out moving forward, and all of these other companies, because the debt is not going to be as lucrative if the Federal Reserve cuts rates, which they haven't done so far, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But again, people are saying, no, nobody's selling Cryptoviser. Well, Arkham Intelligence said the government of Bhutan just transferred about $24 million to their Binance deposit account. The last time they did this was at the end of June. And so if you guys are not aware, Bhutan has been mining Bitcoin for years now. And again, they're not mining Bitcoin just for fun and to pump your bags. They're mining Bitcoin to build an industry and make money for their people and for their country. They're not doing it for your bags. Michael Saylor is not buying Bitcoin for your bags. He's buying this for long-term ownership and control of the, potentially the newer reserve currency. And so the time horizons are different, right? Michael Saylor is already extremely rich. Even if MicroStrategy has to liquidate all of their Bitcoin and it's done for, Michael Saylor is still wealthy for generations, okay? He's not doing this for you. Bhutan is not going to hold their coins to make your bags. They're selling. Why are they selling? Because they understand, number one, they need the money. Number two, they probably mined it for much lower cost. And again, going back to taking a loss, you think a country cares whether they're selling at 117,000 or 150,000? If you have that mentality, you're already lost, because they don't, right? It's not that big of a difference when you're talking about 25 million versus 30 million, right? A country is going to spend all that money regardless. So the extra $5 million is that really going to do anything for the country of Bhutan to hold and potentially miss taking profits out? No. And so we see Ethereum Foundation getting rid of their coins. We see government of Bhutan getting rid of their coins. We saw an 80,000 Bitcoin whale holder unlocking Genesis era Bitcoin. And there's still people who say, but Cryptoviser, nobody's selling their coins except for you. It's like, okay, you're missing the whole point. Like you literally don't know what you're talking about. And by the way, all of these companies, right? We have the MicroStrategies of the world, but maybe I do think MicroStrategy, generally speaking, is going to be okay, because I think they're too big to fail at this point. But all the other companies that are starting to do the same thing that they're doing, I mean, guys, we're at the end of the cycle. James Chanos posted this. He said another penny stock trying to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to buy to buy Bitcoin. So this company is called Coincilium. Coincilium received shareholder approval to issue up to 600 million new shares, okay, enhancing their ability to scale their Bitcoin treasury strategy via their subsidiary. Since May, they raised 11 million pounds and grew its Bitcoin holdings from 5 Bitcoin to 88 Bitcoin. With this new flexibility, they aim to accelerate acquisitions and partnerships and treasury growth aligned with institutional interest. Okay, let's take a look at how much this stock actually is worth. It's a penny stock, but I'm more interested in the actual market cap. So it's called Coincilium. Let's take a look here. Coincilium Group, 38 cents. My gosh, it doesn't even show me a market cap. Okay, so it's probably very, very low. Yeah, and you can see, right? It was a 3 cents. And it pumped on the announcement all the way to $1, right? So a 30x just on the announcement that they're going to be purchasing Bitcoin. And they have 88 Bitcoin, okay? 88 Bitcoin. 88. Not 8,000, not 88,000, 88. And like I said, you don't see in any other asset class, right? They have $10 million, okay? $10 million. You don't see in any other asset class anywhere people saying the Cryptoviser company just bought 1 Bitcoin. It brings our total holdings to 1 Bitcoin. Like nobody's doing this. Nobody's saying, hey, we just bought 50 shares of Tesla and now our dollar cost. Nobody's doing this. Bitcoin is the only thing doing this. You think that other companies aren't making investments? Of course they are. You don't think that they have funds that they're investing in? Of course they do. And so this whole idea that buying Bitcoin and putting it on your balance sheet is going to change the company, it isn't. And when you look at companies that are doing only Bitcoin treasury, long term, it could be extremely lucrative and if well integrated and executed. I think that they can do very well. I mean, I've even said about MicroStrategy, at some point they're going to start utilizing their Bitcoin. They're not just going to hold it. And so that is probably going to be when we do get to $1 million, right? If their average buy price is around 100 and now they're at $1 million, the likelihood they're ever going to get margin called on that is very, very low. But we're not there just yet. This is going to take years, potentially decades, right? A lot longer than most people think. And so keep in mind, MicroStrategy can stay solvent longer than you can. They can raise more money than you can. And so the play is to understand what they're doing, when they're doing it, and how they're doing it, and how it's going to affect the markets. And so I don't think a lot of people are looking at this. I just think people are getting lost in the hype, right? So we have a 38 cent stock going up 10x. It was 3 cents just because they bought 88 Bitcoin. Meanwhile, there's another company coming out called K-Wave Media, securing $1 billion in capital capacity to drive Bitcoin treasury, and they announced a $500 million convertible note with Ansem Funds. So James Chanos wrote, from K-pop to Bitcoin treasury company. That's where we are in the cycle. And if you don't think that that is ridiculous, I don't know. I really don't know what to tell you. I think most of my viewers get it, right? I think you guys get it. And you understand where we are in the cycle, right? When we just have K-pop company, $300 million valuation, announcing a Bitcoin treasury strategy. And by the way, look at their stock. From the beginning of the year, it went down from $12 down to $1, right? 90% drop. And so what is the only way to save the company, right? This is an 86% drop. And I don't know what the reason for the drop was, but that's an 80 or 90% drop just since the beginning of this year. And so what is the company doing to try to save themselves at the all-time record highs, at the top of the market, at the end of the bull cycle? They're buying Bitcoin. I mean, and by the way, raising money, they're going to sell more shares on the open market, which is going to dilute the current shares just to buy Bitcoin. And so the flywheel in a bull market or in the early stages of a bull market the flywheel works, right? You buy Bitcoin, the price goes up. You take out more debt, buy more Bitcoin, price goes up. Keep doing that over and over and over, right? And the price will continue to go up because you're buying more and more. But then if you look at the reversal, whether you think that we're at the reversal point or not, but if you just think about the reversal, now you have Bitcoin, the valuation of the company is based on the current all-time record highs of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes down by 50%, what happens to the company's stock? Does that go down 50%? Does it go down 75% or maybe 90%? Because all that Bitcoin was purchased with debt or purchased with dilution of the shares. And so the fundamental value of these companies has not really changed, right? K-Wave just buying Bitcoin. This doesn't change the way that K-Wave's business model looked. And I don't know what their business model looked like because I'm not really interested. But it tells us like they're doing this to try to save their company or maybe to let some of their shareholders get out. And if you understood, like for whatever the reason, I don't even think it matters why this stock dropped this precipitously. But if you just see this drop, you don't care why it dropped. You want to get out of that stock. And so if the price pumps because of just a Bitcoin strategy at all-time record highs, that's an exit, right? That's an exit. A lot of these companies, I think, are going to, plus, by the way, the other company that we talked about, this one, Concilium, they have 88 Bitcoin. It's like, this is, it doesn't matter. Like this is making no material impact on the market, nor is it really making an impact on anybody else's investment, right? Besides making Bitcoin more like a traditional asset. But at the end of the day, guys, right? If a company was buying gold, would you care? Would anybody give a fuck? Nobody would care, right? If a company said, "Oh, we're buying real estate," nobody cares. Wall Street wants to see cash flow. They want to see revenue. They want to see profits. And while they may see some of that now, right? Because we're hearing, like people are saying, well, MicroStrategy, they have an unrealized gain of $23 billion. And people are calling Michael Saylor the best trader of all time. But he's not a trader, right? That's the key. He's not a trader, and he's not the best trader of all time, because to be a successful trader, you need to actually realize your gains. And if you're not realizing your gains, you're not trading. You're just buying. And I understand Michael Saylor, his viewpoint is much bigger than most of what we would do, or this company buying 88 Bitcoin are going to do, right? They're going to have, even in 10 years, right? If Bitcoin is $1 million, they're going to have $88 million. Michael Saylor buys more in one shot now than they own at $1 million price, right? So it's not really going to have any material impact on their business, on the general business, right? You still have to have something else going on. And this is where we're already starting to hear from Metaplanet. And I would imagine MicroStrategy is going to do this, right? If Bitcoin gets to $1 million or more, and their buy price is 10% of that, right? Their dollar cost average, they're going to start using this Bitcoin. They're going to start loaning it out. They're going to start using it for collateral to buy other cash flowing businesses. They're going to do all of this. That is why they're buying the Bitcoin. They're not buying the Bitcoin because the price is going up. They're buying the Bitcoin because they're going to be able to do things with the Bitcoin. Same reason that people go into developing areas and they buy property, right? They just buy plots of land. And then they get with developers and they say, you're developing, an apartment complex here. We need, in this neighborhood or this area, we need a strip mall. We need a Target. We need a Walmart. Build it. And then that's their idea, right? They're buying it now with the idea that they're going to be able to cash flow in that business by developing it up or selling it to a developer once the area looks better, right? But this idea that they're just going to hold the Bitcoin and not do anything with it and pump your bags, that is not their plan. That is not their strategy. They're buying the Bitcoin to do stuff with it. And they haven't started doing that. And they have a little bit of a runway until they can start doing that with it. Because right now, we're too close to their buy price, right? And so all these companies that are coming out saying we're buying Bitcoin, they're not going to be able to do anything with it for a while either, especially because we are at the end stages of the bull market. And all this final push of cash coming in from these companies that are buying, these companies that are doing, other type of crypto strategies. Like I said with Bitcoin, this is the exit liquidity, and the exit liquidity is slowing down. It is slowing down. How do we know it's slowing down? Because you got these small little companies buying 5 Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin and making announcements. We're not seeing more MicroStrategy type companies popping up. Some of them, MetaPlanet is doing a little bit, some of the other Bitcoin strategy companies, but it's nowhere near the amount that MicroStrategy's at. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this Ethereum play, materializes in the second half of 2025. I personally think that from a performance standpoint, Ethereum is going to perform better percentage gains wise than Bitcoin, because Ethereum is just starting this flywheel of raising money to sell the coin. But we also have to think where they're getting the coins, because I think most of these coins from most of these treasury companies are going to be purchased directly from either whales, private placement, or directly from the mining companies themselves. And so with that, are we at the top of the market? Probably not. But I think that we're getting very close. Definitely with Bitcoin. The rest of the market is kind of up in the air at this point. And I'm going to keep you guys up to date right here on this channel every single day of the year. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Give the video a free thumbs up and let me know what you guys think. Because I don't know, to me, it seems like the Bitcoin trade is exhausted. I'm sick of talking about Bitcoin. I am sick of talking about companies coming out saying, oh, we just bought 5 Bitcoin. It's like, who cares, right? We don't hear this. I mean, think about all NVIDIA stock, Apple stock. I mean, we don't hear people saying, oh, we just bought 500 shares of Apple and our total holdings is that. Like, nobody does that. They only do it in Bitcoin. And I think it's kind of getting exhausted. I think people are now saying, like, it hasn't moved the market yet. All of a sudden, we think it's going to move the market? No. If it hasn't moved the market yet, with the hundreds of billions that have been inflowing in, it's not going to move the market in the future. And so people will, non-traders, right, non-educated investors will look at that and say, well, Cryptoviser, you were wrong. Now the Bitcoin price is moving up because all these companies are buying it. Or this is just end cycle volatility as we rotate from a bull market into a bear market. And all I'm going to say is, when Elon and the president were going back and forth, Elon said in a tweet that the second half of 2025 was going to be a recession. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if tariffs keep going on, the conflicts around the world keep going on, and by the way, the Federal Reserve not cutting rates, which it doesn't seem like they're going to, any material impact. I mean, they may do 0.25% drop in rates and the market will be euphoric. People are going to be like, yes, they're cutting rates finally. Guys, they cut rates last year and then they stopped for almost a year now. And so if they do that again, is that really going to have any material impact on the market? 0.25 percentage point? It will for the non-investors, because they're going to see it as, the Fed is cutting now. It's like, no, not yet. And they said, what is going to happen when the tariff situation trickles into the economy in the U.S., right? I think that people are just so euphoric and they want the market to work so bad in their favor that they miss all of these signals that the market puts out to let you know where we are and the historical context. And like I say on all my videos, like, I could be wrong. I am not trying to be right 100% of the time. But if you're in profit and you take profit and then the price goes double, triple, quadruple from where you took profit, you're still a winner. You are still a winner. And those people who are telling you, no, don't sell yet. We're not at the top. We're not at the top. Cryptoviser's an idiot. All that stuff. They're going to be the losers because they're never going to realize their gain. They're never going to sell. It doesn't matter how high we go. They won't sell because they'll just keep moving the goalposts. And so going back to this video that I showed you at the beginning of this conversation, learning how to take losses and learning what to do with those losses is everything, because winning is easy and it takes caring of itself. But we started this channel because we took massive losses in 2018 because we didn't know what the signals were. We didn't listen to the bears. We didn't understand what a bull trap is. We didn't understand. And by the way, this was before any of these major companies were buying Bitcoin, right? And there were like 4 cryptos when I first started learning about Bitcoin. Like there were 4 cryptocurrencies. And by the end of that year, there were like 15 because they all kept forking different versions of Bitcoin. That was many years ago. We learned a lot over the last, almost decade on this channel, learning about the financial world. But the number one thing that we learned is learning how to take a loss. And when you take the loss, learn from it. Even if you win and then the price quadruples from there, you can look at that and say, okay, I still won, but what did I miss? Maybe it was nothing, right? Because personally, I think that a lot of what we're seeing now happening is just the volatility as we're about to end the bull run, right? Or end the bull cycle. Bear markets have bull cycles in them, and bull markets have bear cycles within them. So I don't want you guys to think like we're just going to go down for a few years, but we've come up really high in a lot of cryptos and a lot of valuation, and we're about to go much higher in these final, this final stage of the market. But if you're not learning and you're getting caught up in the hype, you're going to lose. And we are about winning on this channel. We're about securing profits, moving on to the next trade. And you can look back to reflect and say, what did I miss? What did I not miss? How did I mess up that trade? But if you're in the green, it's a win. Move on. And if you're in the red and you say, you know what? I'm in the red on whatever coin it is or whatever stock it is, doesn't matter. But you say, you know what? Like for instance, right now, you could just say, I'm gonna take my Bitcoin holdings and I'm gonna convert them into Ethereum or convert them into XRP or whatever other coin you're thinking about. Because for me, it's more likely in the end stages of this market that Ethereum will hit its all-time record high or get close to it, which would basically double the price from here. For Bitcoin to double, it's possible. But when I'm just looking at these two, risk reward, there's more risk in there's more reward in the risk with Ethereum than there is with Bitcoin where we are in the cycle currently. For me, that may be different for your portfolio, but that's kind of like what we do on this channel. We break it down, we talk about the markets, we talk about all the different facets in the market, and then we come up with a thesis and a strategy. But then you actually have to execute that thesis and strategy. Most people, they just keep moving the goalposts. Oh, I'll sell at 120,000. I'll sell at 125,000. I'll sell at 130,000. And at some point, the market will reverse, and it won't come back. I mean, it will, but it could take years. And that is the fun of this all, right? It's you're playing a game where even if you are wrong, you could still be right. You just have to wait, right? You go to a slot machine. If you lose, you lose. Granted, the next spin could make you win, right? But if you lose, you lose. In crypto, and I'm talking about the major cryptos, not like shit coins, but the major cryptos, if you're investing in them, even at all-time record highs, there's a very high likelihood that we will revisit those numbers at some point in the future. It could just take many, many years. But sometimes we will never revisit those highs. And then you end up the rest of your trading career chasing those coins that didn't perform. And sometimes you just have to let them go. Sometimes you just have to sell them at a 99% loss, even if you think that they can go higher, just to get them out of your sight and out of your mind in your portfolio. And I think that where we are in the cycle, this is a great opportunity to really look at your portfolio, take some risk off the table, add more risk, whatever you think is going to happen in the market. But based on what we're seeing, there's going to be a lot of people that cannot deal with their losses as we enter the bear market. And It's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. I don't know when, but we will be in a corrective bear market at some point. How are you going to be able to deal with it? Let me know down below in the comments, and make sure you guys are subscribed. Give the video a free thumbs up, because thumbs up are free. Crypto is not. You can't lose with a thumbs up. You can only win. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's conversation. Check out my other videos on the channel. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And as always, invest responsibly, do your own research, and crypto on.